Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our session. We'll be beginning in 2 or 3 minutes. Please keep your devices on mute. Thank you. Good evening, participants. We request you to be on mute. We'll be beginning in a minute now. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is Sukhada Kelkar, and on behalf of Disha Counseling Center, I welcome each and everyone to you for today's special, extremely interactive session, which is connected with dealing with breakup and loss in relationships. So we have in conversation with us our two very esteemed speakers. I would love to start by introducing and talking a little bit about my dear director, Mrs. Samindra Sawant. So welcome, Samindra ma'am. And I would like to speak a few words about Samindra ma'am. Samindra ma'am is a clinical psychologist, director and founder member of Disha Counseling Center. And I'm very proud to introduce that Disha is in its 20th year in the field of mental health. So with this, Disha specializes as the spearhead and the brain of this entire organization lies with Samindra ma'am and all the three co-directors. Disha specializes in psychodiagnostics, assessments, aptitude testing, workshops, corporate services, child assessments. And a lot of this also belongs greatly to Samindra ma'am. That is because she, being a clinical psychologist, along with all the other directors, has spearheaded this. So with this, Samindra ma'am is in her 22nd year of clinical practice in the field of mental health. She is also the resource room head director of Bhaktivedanta Swami Mission School and ICC Board School. She's a senior consultant psychologist and works extensively with children, adults, young adults, geriatric population, as well as clinically specified population. Being a clinical psychologist, Samindra ma'am has also completed a lot of her trainings and intensive work. She's a registered clinical hypnotherapist and inner child integration therapist. She's an REBT CBT practitioner as well as a transformational growth therapist. Her forte lies in working with children, the psychodiagnostics, clinical assessments, psychiatric clinical assessments, as well as psychodiagnostics, conducting workshops for teachers, parents, corporate services, as well as a whole range in connecting and writing contributions towards art, towards newspapers and leading magazines. So welcome to you, Samindra ma'am. And with this, I would love to be talking about our dear guest today, that is Swapnil Pange. Hi, Swapnil. Welcome to the workshop. So Swapnil is also a clinical psychologist from the University of Mumbai, and he's been practicing in the field for the past 11 years. Swapnil has also completed his training in the area of RDCBT practices, as well as transactional analysis and trauma-focused psychotherapy. His areas of practice cover substance addictions, non-substance and behavioral addictions, marital relationship counseling, as well as trauma-focused therapy. As mentioned, he's also working extensively in the field of career counseling, as well as dealing with different kinds of populations, specifically adults and young adults. He's been active in the field of mental health, and as a trainer, his forte lies in dealing with youth as well as adults. He is also very adept at doing clinical assessments, IQ personality testing, and so on and so forth. Being fluent in running developmental groups for teenagers and developmental groups for youth, he's also held support groups for anxiety and depression. He has been training several mental health professionals in the various areas of mental health and has conducted umpteen workshops in the areas of psychodiagnostics and corporates. So I welcome all of you, and I really request the two of you to spearhead today's session. And we would also like to quickly introduce and talk a little bit about this unique offering which we have with Disha, which we will soon talk about, which is connected with marital therapy, having healthier romantic relationships, a unique offering by Disha Counseling Center as a workshop. So as we go through the session, we will be talking a lot more about it. So with this, I welcome all of you and I hand over the session to the two of you. Over to you, Samindra ma'am.
Thank you, Sukhada, for those lovely introductions, and a warm welcome and hello to all you dear participants here. It gives me a great pleasure to host this session today, and to be very honest, my job is easy today. I'm going to be the one who's going to be directing a lot of questions that over the years, many of you have been asking us in therapy sessions, during workshops about relationships, the ups and downs of relationships, and particularly when there is a loss in relationship. And Swapnil here, as Sukhada mentioned, has his expertise in the area of relationship counseling. So it's very fortunate for us that he's going to share some of his views with us. So without much ado, let's start, Swapnil.
Yes, sure.
So one of the first things I would like to ask you really is that what does loss really in a relationship mean? A while back, I read somewhere on the internet that, those we love never truly leave us. Yet all of us have experienced loss in relationship in some or the other form, whether it is a friendship gone sour, whether it is a romantic relationship that hasn't worked out, whether it's a loss that's come in the form of a death or a separation. So what really does loss in a relationship mean? Can you help us understand that a little bit more?
Yes, sure. First of all, it's very nice to be with all of you. Happy to be associated with Disha Center. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Okay, so answering the first question, what is a loss accordingly? So before we talk about relationship loss, let me ask, all of you, is there anyone who hasn't experienced any loss ever till now? Is there anyone? Any kind of loss? I'm not just talking about relationship loss, but here I'm talking about any kind of loss. I'm sure the answer there rarely, if I can see anyone, like talking about it, I haven't experienced it yet. So this is not the reality. The reality is what all of us, we do experience loss at some or the other time. Okay. It is an inevitable part of our life. We have, experienced loss of our status, loss of things that we purchase, things which we belong to us, then loss of money, opportunity, and also people. Okay, so it tells us that the loss is a process which tells us that things and situations can come and go. Time is constantly changing, so we also do need to change, and this is something which is taught by this process of a loss. Loss actually teaches us adaptability. It also teaches us how to be resilient. How do we react to the loss is very important. Now when we are talking about relationship loss, so here we do see different reactions, and different people have different reactions to that loss. Okay, some losses now when we talk about a non-relationship loss or loss in general, we do get to see that some losses are reversible while some losses are not. For example, if we talk about status or things we purchase, or maybe money, economical things, these things are reversible. The loss of such kind of things is reversible. But when we talk about a relationship, and if there is a permanent loss, this loss is not reversible. So we have, not only we do experience this in a short term, but it has long term impact on our life, on our psychology, on our mental health. So basically loss, I do see this phenomenon of loss has a survival purpose for us. It teaches us how to survive without something which valued to us at some or the other point of time, something which was very near dear to us, and now because of some xyz reason we have lost it, and now we need to deal with it. So loss teaches us how to move on and go ahead. So some people, so we do see reactions, different reactions. Some people are easily, because of their personality, because of the resources that they have, it is very easy for them to deal with the loss, while some of us really struggle, for years to deal with this loss. So yes, loss is something which is inevitable. It tells us how well we are prepared to something which is inevitable. How do we cope with it? How do we cope with this loss actually reflects our coping abilities. So now when we talk about relationship loss, it could be either permanent loss or it could be temporary loss. So loss is very important to us because it actually reflects how well we can cope with some kind of uncertainties. Samindra ma'am?
Yes. Thank you so much. That is really well explained. So, when you say coping abilities, as you mentioned, that some of us kind of fall apart when there is a loss, but some of us happen to manage to pick up the pieces much better. So, can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about what these various psychological reactions to loss could be, and how different people react differently to
Yes,
loss in a
sure.
relationship?
Yes. So when we discuss or when we look at the way people cope with this loss, we need to also understand what are some of the other factors which will decide whether they are going to cope in healthy ways or unhealthy ways. One is, which I have found over years, that the relationship scripts that all of us we have formed over a period of time. Okay, so all of us, we do have some relationship script, as in it is about how the relationship should be. It is about how my partner should be, his or her behavior. So all these factors like relationship script, individual personality, okay, all these factors are going to decide how we are going to cope with this loss. Now let's try to understand what are the psychological reactions when particularly when we experience such kind of loss. So first of all, now let's talk about the relationship loss. Okay, let's talk about the breakup first. So first of all, I have seen many clients who will ring up and who want to take immediate appointment. Sir, I say, so they are talking about their relationship since quite long, and suddenly they will text me or they will call me, sir, we want immediate appointment because this is something happened, and now I think we are on the verge of breakup. So sometimes I could see this whole process of dating together, evolving together at a point of time, having conflicts and then dissolving that relationship. So first thing which people commonly do at psychologically, they try to seek the answer. They try to seek answer. Why is it happening to me? Why this person is behaving the same way? Why this person wants to break this relationship? And at a psychological level, we are quite desperate to know, because psychologically, emotionally, we have invested a lot in it, right? And when we invest somewhere something, we obviously we want to know what is going wrong, who is going wrong. So first we get very desperate to seek answer, as in why this has happened, okay, why this person is trying to behave in this way. So we try to figure out the reasons behind the behavior. Sometimes we attribute the reason is to that person, okay, wo aise hi hai karke. Sometimes the reason is attributed to it is internalized, okay, because I have behaved in this way, probably this person didn't like it, and that could be the reason for loss. So we try to seek the answers, and we try to connect everything with the past event, and we find many of the discrepancies. For example, this recent Valentine, we had a wonderful time spent together, and suddenly after 6 months post lockdown, I've seen many couples they're breaking because they could not deal with the long distance relationship. So they try to figure out what went wrong, they try to connect with the past events, and they try to find out some meaning, find out some answers to their questions. Second most important reaction, which is quite common, people are into stage of denial. All of us, do we know that we are something which comes as very shocking, something which is we have never expected, anticipated. We react immediately in a phase, in a manner of denial. It can't be true, he must be kidding, or she must be joking, or there must be some prank going on. Usually people have habit of making some prank. So we are in a stage of denial wherein we don't believe this has happened. Okay, here we don't start experiencing grief. As of now, we are still in the stage wherein we are trying to deal with the situation, try to find out whether it is still workable or not. Okay, what we do here, we try to postpone the grief. Grief is, we are going to learn about grief, what is grief later on, but here yet the process of grieving is not yet started. We just try to postpone it with the hope that something might work out. We are not ready to face the grief, we are not ready to face the realistic things or realistic matter which has happened. And we also have this hope that eventually things will fall on place. So second stage is the denial, after which most of the people start bargaining in the sense, this is quite interesting to understand the pattern why certain people go back to their unhealthy relationships. We have seen many a times, like the partner is very abusive, the partner is not someone who will actually keep this person happy, but still people would want to go back to the same partner because sometimes they become quite successful in the stage of bargaining. I always call it, why bargaining? Because they try to compensate, they try to give some false commitment. Okay, I'll do this for you. Okay, I will disconnect myself from everyone. I have seen so many couples, so many youths, once they're on the verge of breakup, they make some false promises कि मैं किसी के साथ बात नहीं करूंगा, मैं किसी के साथ contacts नहीं रखूंगा. I have known very extrovert people just losing all the contacts, all their social contacts, just because their partner doesn't want them to deal with other people. So here there are chances that the person who is undergoing this breakup might end up bargaining something which is unrealistic. Okay, it is very important to understand that the bargaining is not your sole responsibility. because so what happens here when I try to bargain, I try to tell other person that I'm taking the responsibility to amend this relationship, which is not the case. I'm telling the other person, okay, it was my mistake, though it may be like 50-50% contribution of both the partners. But when we do bargaining, it is actually we're telling the other person that, okay, you tell me, okay, I lost it, and now you tell me I'm ready to work with your terms and conditions. So at the stage of bargaining, most of the times people assume that it is their responsibility to work on this relationship, but in fact that is not. After that, then there are like the process of fear of losing the partner, then a lot of anger towards the partner. Sometimes people do take revenge, and after a certain period, after many maybe few months, going through some new life experiences, people sort of they try to make some peace with it. Some people healthily would accept that, but there are some people, I know, I have seen clients, they are after 3 years or 4 years of breakup, they are still not able to move on the person, and which is quite very sad to know that. So these are some of the psychological reactions that people go through. Samindra ma'am.
Thank you, Swapnil. You just spoke about people not being able to move on. So what is this whole moving on all about? What do we really mean when we tell somebody that, you need to move on? What does that really mean? Does it mean that you forget that you were in a relationship, or that you forget the person existed and had a role in your life? Or what is it that moving on means? Because sometimes we've seen, right, people becoming bitter about past relationships.
True.
So when a person is full of anger and full of bitterness, would you say this person has moved on? So what it really means, and how do we know that a person has moved on?
I was doing a lot of research, reading a lot of research about this, and based on my practical experience also, what I have understood, moving on is a dynamic process. It is not a set of process which is over and then now finally you are moved on. So I always tell my clients कि ऐसे नहीं होगा कि one particular day, on one fine day, you'll wake up and you'll realize that how unhealthy that relationship was and you moved on. No, definitely it is important to understand, as we see in many of these web series or movies or serials, there is a point wherein we realize something at an emotional level. So that could be reached, or that point comes at a different time for everyone. Some people are able to achieve that time. So moving on, I would say it's a big process, but we need to have some kind of a rock bottom which needs to be hit at certain time, and that depends on different factors. So it is different for different people, but moving on is a process. So how do I look at this process is, you need to start somewhere. So I always tell my clients, so moving on is something which always start with the first thing, that you cry and express. Now we are trying to understand how to deal with this breakup and how to move on. So first you cry and express that you have all this emotional involvement, emotional investment, and unfortunately, sadly, regretfully, it ended in very abrupt manner, or very unhealthy manner. So we ask clients, I tell my clients first to express and accept this. Now moving on is a process wherein we need to shift from one person to different activities. I have read this statement somewhere. I found it very beautiful, that life never stops around one single person or one single event or one single point. I found it very healthy thing to understand, and this itself indicates that moving on is a process, and it keeps on happening over a period of time, for which a person needs to focus on healthy activities in daily living. Okay, very important, which I tell my clients, keeping distance from the partner. Now there are different versions of moving on. Okay, so I'll tell you, I found it quite I was wondering, I always wonder when people tell that, okay, so they will say that, okay, we have moved on, so like now we have broken. So I asked them, like, what do you exactly do now? No, we still meet, we still have coffee, we still have like conversation in a group, but we don't interact emotionally, we don't interact in a lovey-dovey phase or lovey-dovey manner. Now, it is important to understand that if your relationship involvement or investment is such at a severe, significant level, it will be slightly difficult for anyone to move on like this. So if you really want to de-invest yourself from the partner, you need to keep a physical distance, mental distance from the partner. keeping a physical space, mental space from the partner. This could be through social media. People usually block each other. Okay, sometimes I find it, sometimes it is helpful also. My clients do ask, should I block him or her? I said, is it going to help you? Are you going to block, unblock, block, unblock? If it is not going to happen like that, definitely you can block the person, because in certain situation, in order to move on, you need to keep some distance from the partner, which is going to evoke those negative feelings or emotional feelings. Most of the time, what I have seen during this moving on process, people bounce or go back or go into the rebound relationship. I'm sure most of us, we have heard this term, that rebound relationship. So rebound relationship is very important phenomenon or concept, wherein any source, so for example, suppose a person has broken, okay, and then any such source which provides the safety, security, or nurturance, that source is perceived as a possible future source for dating and mating. Okay, and without understanding whether I am actually ready for an emotional investment. So chances of rebound relationship happens chances are quite high, and people within 1 or 2 months of their breaking period or breakup time, they are found getting involved into some other person. But unfortunately, that also doesn't last for a longer time, and then eventually they experience second breakup. This is important. Then very important in the process of moving on is, don't stay alone. People usually prefer isolation. People do stop connecting with their friends. They stop connecting with their activities which they had found very interesting. So I usually tell them, don't stay alone. Okay, don't listen to sad songs. This is something which is most of the common error that people do, and in movies. So this is how we have developed our schema about relationship, right? So if you are broken, agar breakup hua hai, to background mein sad songs bajne hi chahiye. But that is not the case, because that's those so sad songs, if you look at those songs, if you look at the lyrics, song composition, everything is like eventually is going to push you in the same emotional experience. So research also says that don't listen or don't get into the sad song business. In fact,
Devdas.
yes, or like tujhe yaad na meri aayi kisi se ab kya कहना. So this is something which is quite like usual. One interesting thing, I'm sure you must have also heard, there was one movie a few years ago, and they had this breakup song. So the song, I don't remember the name of the movie, but this the heroine, the actress, she experiences the breakup, and they celebrate this breakup. So in a way, now I read a lot about this process. Then there are some mixed reviews. So somewhere it is said that it is a healthy way to move on. Okay, but I'm unsure whether all these unfinished business are finished or not. So this is a new way to look at the breakup. Okay, chalo ho gaya. Now let's celebrate. But again, the ways with which I celebrate should be healthy and not unhealthy. So this is something which I found very amazing, the breakup thing, breakup celebration. And yes, of course, at the end, if the symptoms persist for a longer period, in spite of doing all these things, if you're unable to move on properly, you need to seek professional help always. So yes, the moving on is not something which you can achieve, say, for example, 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. It is going to be a process for maybe till the time you find something meaningful in your life. Samindra ma'am?
Yes. Thank you so much. That is so well explained and so valuable. So, just in a nutshell, to summarize what you said about moving on, because this is important for many of us. One thing you're saying is that it could be different for different people, and people can keep going back and forth. So there may be good days and bad days, is what you're saying, right?
Yes, yes.
Also, what you're saying is, try to, if you're truly sure about the relationship ending, then try to have at least some period where you're not in contact with the person. Try not to keep yourself isolated. Be with people who are part of your support network. Be with people who will rally you, who will help you to kind of come back into joy in life. And you're also saying that try and avoid, it's okay to connect to your feelings of loss and grief, but don't wallow in them by maybe listening to sad songs or being all by yourself, or kind of don't fan those feelings.
Right, right.
what you're saying. Thank you so much. There's one thing you touched upon, and I would like to ask
Hmm.
you a question to
Hmm.
elaborate more on that. Is about social media, because I think we know that especially the young generation today, their life is social media and their life is on social media. So when they are in a relationship, it's all over on their Insta feeds or on Snapchat or on Facebook, though I think Facebook is for older people like us.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And then, as you said, sometimes it results in blocking each other, or
Hmm.
sometimes it results in nasty things being said to each other. And then there
Hmm.
are pictures, so there are issues around privacy or
Hmm.
misuse
Hmm.
of
Hmm. Hmm.
pictures. So, how really should one conduct the breakup of the relationship on social media? Are there a few handy tips that you can give us in terms of like do's and don'ts on social media regarding a relationship or regarding a breakup?
Okay, yes, very apt and very important. First of all, stop stalking what the other person is doing.
Yes,
That is,
absolutely.
and we are, as you know, normal. This is normal human tendency. I need to know what the other person is doing without me, whether the person is fine, whether he's like, he or she is like really happy or sorrow, whatever. So in a way, we are not giving closure to it. So stop stalking on Facebook profile, Facebook, Instagram, all the activities. Just take some time off your social media. Okay, some people choose to block, some people don't. That is their personal, depending on their coping abilities. Then they can choose. Second, do not spread any kind of negative words about your partner. Okay, this is something again which is quite common, and this is how people trying to express their anger, anguish, feelings towards the ex partner. They will talk about maybe common friends. They will keep on seeking about information about this person through common friend. This is something which needs to be avoided, because these are the small things which again gives some hope. So I always remember I used to work in the university, and then the students used to come to me for a regular counseling, and one of such student was undergoing this breakup phase, and we were doing the counseling part. And then after every 3 days, he used to text me, or whenever he used to meet, I saw her DP. There was some sad quote, sad meme which she had shared on the social media, which means that still is she missing me. So what happens, due to the social media activity of the ex-partner, the current person, the person who is undergoing breakup, tries to decode the meaning of that in his or her own self-fulfilling ways, which is again not healthy for moving on. So first thing, as I said, don't stalk that person. Do not gossip about that person to any of your common friends. Do not keep on like posting about your breakup on social media, because what I personally feel that when we are experiencing such kind of emotions, these are quite sensitive, very very personal to us, very valuable emotions of ours, and when we post it on social media, people, all of them may not react in a positive manner. For example, someone might say that, okay, I need to gain support from my friends, so that's why I've posted it on social media. But yes, some of the comments would go very nasty, some of the comments would go very negative, and that again might hurt me, and that will affect my process of moving on. So do not post any such stuff related to breakup. Probably you can take a break from social media, not to discuss about it. And these are the things, few very simple things I think people should take into consideration while moving on.
Yes, I think that's very, very valuable, and I'm sure
Hmm.
all the young people here would have made a note of this. Moving on to a more, you spoke about losses that are permanent and losses that
Hmm.
are
Hmm.
temporary.
Hmm.
I think one of the most difficult for anybody to deal
Hmm.
with is the loss that comes after the death of a loved one.
Hmm.
I mean, although a
Hmm.
breakup can also be permanent loss, but when there
True.
is death, there is nothing more permanent than a death. So
Hmm.
can you tell us a little bit more about how does one deal with a loss that comes because of death of a loved one?
Okay.
I sure we about it.
Hmm. We need to understand this, the death of loved one, or we are talking about loss due to death. We need to understand important about the grief reaction. Okay, so I would like to just highlight the grief part of it. So grief is actually a reaction to any form of loss. As I said, loss could be of any form. And then we have this process of bereavement, wherein in Marathi it is called as viyog or shok. Okay, so this is quite intense than just a grief. And we usually experience this bereavement or viyog whenever we experience this permanent loss, either due to separation or due to death. So it is very important to understand this grief or grief reaction. It encompasses the whole range of emotions. So there is a deep sadness about a loss. There is an anger, why did this happen to me, why did you do this to me. Sometimes the anger is towards the person who is no more. So a lot of people, they're still angry with this person who has left them abruptly. So that there is sadness, there is anger, and this whole process of adapting to the loss is quite complicated. Okay, and it is important to understand the adaptation depends on your cultural background. It depends on your belief system. How do you, whether you are capable enough to face such kind of loss, your shoulds and must about certain things, events in your life. Okay, and your actual relationship to what you have lost. So you have sadness, you have guilt, you have anger and regret. So when a person is experiencing such kind of loss, the person is undergoing all these emotions. This is a spectrum of emotions. So if you see a person, for example, who has lost his probably a spouse, you might see that person is sad, not talking to anyone. That is probably a secondary emotion that the person is showing, or that is something which is observable emotion. But beneath or below those this particular emotions, there is a spectrum of different emotions, like sadness, there is a guilt, there is anger, there is regret. It depends on your cultural background. How do you express to it? Now when we experience such kind of loss, people, what mostly they try to make some meaning out of it. They try to make some sense of their loss. So sometimes, they assign the responsibility to themselves, and they go into the guilt mode. The survivor's guilt, if you, all of us, we know the survivor guilt. If this is an accident, if it's that kind of. Now I have seen this in a COVID period, wherein both the partners were like affected with COVID. They were admitted in the hospital, and unfortunately one person passed away. Now the person who was left behind was carrying this survivor's guilt. Why me? And so like, and this is something they are not able to deal with it. So we experience this kind of emotions in the grieving period, or in the loss time. So as I said, the permanent loss could be due to divorce, or it could be a separation, or it could be a death. Now what needs to be done, how to deal with this loss due to death of a partner? This is something which we are focusing. Since we are less equipped to deal with the pain and the emotional turmoil, we need to seek professional help if required. As I said earlier, we need to build social support for this. We need to talk about it. First of all, if all of us, we know that in our culture, we have assigned the post-death rituals, wherein we have certain time assigned for grieving. And it has not only cultural or religious base, but it also has a psychological base. Why? Because see, this is a huge loss. So that the process, in Marathi apan bolto na ki there are 12th day post death, 13th, so these are quite, in a way, these are celebrated in the sense that now you have been assigned, or you have been given this 12 days, 2 weeks to grieve yourself, to deal with this process of loss in a healthier way. So that's the reason people mostly, if you see, people cry a lot, they went out, and this is actually a good period wherein you can deal with your grief very effectively, very healthily. So some people, it is very interesting to understand, some people, so there are two kinds of reaction to this loss. Some people will react emotionally. So they will talk about the deceased person, they will talk about their loss, they will talk about the the memories, events and everything, and they will talk it in a very normal way, healthier way, and this is how they are coping with the grief. But there are certain people who will keep their feelings aside, who will restrict themselves, and they will immediately go back to their work without dealing with this grief in a healthier way. and research or science says that that's not the healthier way. Even our religious culture, rituals also tells us the same thing कि 12 दिनों तक 13 दिनों तक आप पूरा घर में हो, spend time with your family, do those rituals, and then you get a psychological confidence. Now this grieving whole part is over, and now I can go back to my work in a healthier way. Now what I have experienced during COVID period, the grieving is not, it is not getting closure. So I know someone, wherein there is a death in a family. So in a 1 week, a mother expired, and after like 8-10 days, a son expired due to COVID. Now the problem is that people cannot visit each other. People, like, so there is no one to give you a physical support, that cuddling or that hug, or that kind of emotional support. So there is no closure to this grieving, and that is, so the whole definition of grief has changed due to this pandemic situation. So it is important to understand how people are reacting. So some people will react in a very mechanical way. They will just show it as if they are not affected by it, but that is also very unhealthy. One more important thing is, the sometimes if the death is sudden without any anticipation, unexpected, there is a trauma plus grief. So we not only experiencing the grief part, but that is so traumatic that I haven't yet reached to the process of grieving. So now here there is a alarming sign that a person needs some professional help. So these are the primary or common reactions people undergo, or they experience, or they show while they are grieving with the loss of the near dear ones. Samindra ma'am?
Yes. So what you're basically saying is that when there is a bereavement or when there is loss, particularly due to death, it's a good idea to give yourself time, give yourself whatever long, however long it takes, those days, especially going by the wisdom of our ancestors with respect to the rituals. Allow yourself to go through the process, feel, even if you're feeling emotional or you're feeling tearful, that you're saying that's normal. It's normal to cry, it's normal to remember the person and feel the loss. I think that's very helpful, because it validates the experiences of so many of
Exactly.
us
Yes,
and the need
absolutely.
to have closure. And also, I think the other thing which you're talking about, touching upon the current times, COVID times, part of the reason people are not getting closure is also because the support system isn't always able to reach as well. So
Yes.
now, of course, things are a little opened up, but otherwise, like, even if there was a death, you couldn't really go to meet your loved ones, or your loved ones couldn't be there with you to support you. So I suppose that also adds to the closure taking time, or adds to the feelings of shock and trauma. So yeah,
Yes.
all these things so very important for us to understand and deal with. You spoke some time back about finding meaning again in life after a loss, whether it's a loss of a relationship, like a breakup or a separation, or through death. So is there any method that people can follow to be able to reconnect and find some meaning in life, or is it more of an organic process that evolves automatically? What does it really mean, and how can we help ourselves find meaning in life when there has been a loss of relationship?
Yes, this is called as, I was reading somewhere, this is called as restoration oriented activities. Okay, so
Mhm.
once we, when we are experiencing, any kind of grief process or grieving, it is essential that we need to adapt to the environment without the person. Okay, so accepting the reality of a loss, which we are talking about, working through the pain of a grief, so it is okay once in a while you are crying. That's perfectly fine. You're crying in front of your other family member, that is okay, that is completely fine. Now the important task is how to adjust the life without this person. So now, for example, in a family, suppose there is a husband and wife, both only couples are, couple, they are living, or they used to stay together, and now one person is no more. Now the whole meaning of, since daily routine, since the first thing which the person used to do in the morning will be changed totally. For example, if there are people, who especially women, mother used to cook for everyone, now the son is not there, it will remind her of, what is happening, the process. So it is going to happen for some time. Okay, so adapting to this new role is something which a person needs to understand. There is going to be a change in routine, and some people are going to find it difficult to change, adapt to this routine. Okay, now what is essential is person needs to understand, the person needs to develop some new ways of connecting to family and friends without this person. Okay, there will be things, there will be situations, there will be some cues which will remind you of that person, and you will get, emotional at that point of time. But now we have to understand that, so initial period, for example, suppose on the scale of 0 to 10, we might say that initially the pain or the grieving process would be at 10. And now next time when I things related to my partner, things related to, that the deceased person, I have to tell myself, okay, I have already experienced the level at 10th, but I know that I cannot go back to zero level. It is okay to experience myself this sadness somewhere between 4, 5 and 6. Means what? While doing my daily chores, daily work, at the same time I can uh, still experience the grief. Okay, so this is called as functional grieving. Dysfunctional grieving is something which makes me completely helpless, completely, actionless. So what is functional grieving? Functional grieving is like, oh, I remember this person, I feel teary, aasu aate hain aankh mein, and I feel very helpless. How can I do something without you? It's okay, but still at the same time, what I'm doing is like, I'm carrying my daily activities, I'm doing things on my own. Very next important thing is that most of the time people, they think that if you are experiencing grief, you're not supposed to take enjoy anything. You're not supposed to, laugh. You're not supposed to have any kind of humor. But in fact, if you want to go through this process of grieving, you need to have some kind of humor to your living. You can watch some, comedy serials. You can watch something which, gives you laughter, which gives you some joy or contentment, the things or activity which used to make you feel good about yourself. Now what happens in this case, most of the activities, if these are joint activities, again you are likely to feel, the same. So for example, me and my partner, we used to, meet at this particular venue. It could be a hotel, it could be a garden or anything. So whenever now I go there, it reminds me of him, and I start crying, or I start losing my emotions. Now try to understand that I'm going to experience this, but it has to be functional and not the dysfunctional. So this is, how someone needs to adjust with the new reality in the absence of the loved one. uh, there could be, some efforts needs to be done to develop one's own identity without this person. And remember that when we are doing all these things, it doesn't mean that we have forgotten this loved one. It is not like that. It is as if we are trying to assimilate ourselves, adapt ourselves with this loss. Yes, Samindra ma'am.
Thank you, Swapnil. I
Yes.
lost connection in
Yes. Yeah.
between
Yeah.
when I was away.
Hmm.
But what I would like you to kind of touch upon, and there are a lot of questions I see
Yes.
on the
Hmm.
chat
Hmm.
already. Just one last thing before we take these questions is,
Hmm.
um, so as you have been saying, or as we have been talking about, people experience loss in very different ways and cope in very
Hmm.
different ways. So
Hmm.
when you said that, when things become, when things go beyond a certain point, or you're not able to cope, you need to seek professional help.
Hmm.
Can you
Hmm.
quickly tell us what would be the signs or the indicators that this is not part of healthy grieving or
Hmm.
healthy
Hmm. Hmm.
coping with loss, and maybe this person would benefit from professional help?
So
How do we take that decision?
yeah, so one is important, like after once this decided grieving period is over, okay, till few months we are likely to experience it. But say for example, after 6 months of this loss, still person is able to have some kind of nightmares, some kind of episodes wherein a person is crying, like anything, crying heavily. Person still is not able to focus, person is sad all the time, and person is having this wish that he or she would also die, be dead. Okay, so whenever all these things, all these thoughts, all these emotions, all these behaviors persist even after the grieving period is over, then that is the point wherein others should understand that this person is not yet over this loss. And while especially the other members could deal with it very healthily, and this person is not being able to do that, so I think that is a crucial point wherein the person should be directed to a mental health professional.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There are a lot of questions that are coming up. So Swapnil, should we take some questions at this point in time? And then if time permits, we can continue with some more questions.
Sure. We can start.
So before I read the questions from the chat, let's throw open the forum. And if anybody has any question, maybe you could just unmute yourself and ask the question to Swapnil. Anybody? Okay, so let me start by reading the questions from the chat, and then if there are any more questions, you can unmute yourself and ask, or if you prefer to put the questions on chat, you could do that as well. So one question is, how can one deal with feelings of betrayal after breakup, knowing that the partner left for another person?
Okay, yeah, very important, this feeling of betrayal. Now here, very important thing, what are you looking for? Knowing the fact that your partner has left you for another person. So what is more disturbing you, that he has left you or he has left you for the another person? Because see, this is going to make a difference. If someone has left me for the other person, it means that I'm being rejected over someone else. Now it will have altogether a different angle. If it will have, you're likely to experience altogether different emotions when the other partner or other person is in the picture. So yes, so very important is like you need to give closure to this. Okay, secondly, when someone rejects you over someone else, it doesn't mean that you are rejected. It means that the person had a choice. Okay, the person had a choice to prefer someone else over you, and this person has exercised his choice. That's it. I know it is very technical, very rationalistic, but it helps at a times. It is like if someone chooses to eat pizza over ice cream or maybe pasta. How do we look at such choices? Okay, yeah, it means that I don't like this and I've preferred something else over this. So if my partner has left me for another person, so it means that at the end of the day, the partner has a choice to be loyal with me. Okay, and he or she has a choice to leave me for some other person, and he unfortunately, sadly, regretfully, he exercised the other choice. And of course I'm going to get affected by it. Remember, mind you, we are going to affect by it. But let's now stop ruminating about why did he do this, because we really don't have an answer. Okay, again, we don't know whether this person is like better than me, then we will have low self-esteem, low self-confidence, that someone is like better than me, and that's why. So now that will build that whole insecurity. So it is very important to understand that the person had a choice and the person exercised that choice. And again, yes, if the feeling is so severe and it is not allowing you to get over it, you need to definitely talk to a professional for that. I hope the question is answered.
Yes. Thank you, Swapnil. Yeah. Very well answered. A related question, how can one once again build their trust after a breakup so that one feels safe in the next relationship that they may get into?
Very good, very important, because I have seen, in personal life with friends, also in a professional life with clients, that once you experience this breakup, you build this bitterness. Okay, it's like मराठी मध्ये आपण म्हणतो की एकदा तोंड भाजलं का ताक सुद्धा फुंकून पितो. It means that like once we have experienced that worst experience, any other normal experience, we try to look at that experience again in the absolute negativistic or negative manner. So very important. Now suppose if you have lost the trust in relationship, first of all, stop generalizing it. As I said from my previous question, this person had that choice and it was about his choice price. not necessarily the second person whom I'm going to date will do the same thing. Second thing, no one is going to give me that assurance that कि ये फिर से नहीं होने वाला है. So if I am wanting this assurance, probably I may not get into any healthy relationship. See, at any point of time, a person's mindset may change, and this is the reality. But again, that should not deter me from forming healthy, bonds in my life. So suppose if I really have trust issues, then probably what might happen, in the second relationship also, I will be more possessive, more paranoid, sort of, having trust issues. So what we can do is, like, first of all, you heal yourself properly, work on yourself. There must be some, left insecurities, trust issues and everything. You need to discuss, you need to somehow, need to get a closure with it. And with all this self work, once you enter in the second relationship, you have to always hope that this may get better than the previous one. Though no one can give us this assurance that this is the best relationship and this is going to work, because I have seen cases wherein, in spite of knowing each other for several years, there are reasons and people have broken after 15 years of relationship. There are people who are jumping from one relation to another relationship. So there are different scenarios. But yes, the feeling safe is something which would start from your own self. That is something which you can do. You can always be transparent with your partner. You can always have this dialogue with your partner, so that you can tell your partner that, okay, your this behavior makes me feel unsafe. Your this behavior reminds me of my ex-partner. This may also happen. So always be quite clear about it, vocal about it, and both of you mutually can always work on it. Yes?
Yes.
I hope this.
Thank you, Swapnil. I think two key points that I take from what you just said is, the first and foremost, don't generalize. One relationship turned out a certain way does not mean the other also will, or others also will. And the other side of this coin is also that don't look for assurances. Right? So I think that's a very important insight for us, that while we can't really look for guarantees and assurances, at the same time, we don't want to get into a relationship with the idea at the back of my mind that, something like this is going to happen again. So having that balance is so very important. Nice. Thank you. Okay. So the next question is, how does one know that it's the right time to give up and move on a particular relationship?
Very crucial one, because so there are, I would say, some clinical factor, as Samindra ma'am had asked some time ago, what are the signs that one should seek professional help. So anything which is causing effect on your daily functioning is one of the indication that you need to stop this. Anything which is causing an abuse on yourself in a relationship, you need to stop there. Anything which is causing a tremendous toll on your mental health. For example, you love this partner, but at the same time, when you are going to meet this person, talk this person, you get this anxiety. Okay, if you're having such kind of feeling, unsafe feeling, anxious feeling, then it's a time where you need to relook or revamp, everything, your beliefs about the relationship. So as I said, yes, if it is causing self-harm, you feel somewhere, like you don't deserve this, and there could be self-harm attempt also. So all these things, these are the signs and symptoms, and when you need to realize that it's the right time to give up and move on. Again, try to understand, it might happen that you will move on and something else might happen, and you will start feeling that, oh shit, मैंने जल्दबाजी तो नहीं की. And then again, you're like pendulum ki tarah, you will go back and forth. So try to understand, once you are convinced that you need to move on, you need to stop, just be convinced there, and you be firm with your decision, and then move on or move ahead.
Yes. Two people have asked this question. I'm not sure whether you can answer this question in a couple of minutes. I think it's probably a whole session. But one is, I'm a teenager. What tips would you suggest to keep in mind while building any relationship? And a similar question, how to build a healthy relationship? So maybe a few tips you can share, and we can take it up in another session in a more detailed manner.
Healthy relationship is a two-way process. Okay, it is always a two-way. It's not a one-way. So what you can always keep in mind is, building healthy relationship, give some time before you decide into a committed relationship. Okay, so usually before marriage there is a courtship period. Okay, so something you need to give some time to know each other. Okay, initially what happens during the initial stage of relationship, everything appears quite glossy, and quite very normal trait is perceived as something which is extraordinary. Okay, so for example, if the person is introvert, the partner in the dating or the possible the dating person would say that, look, he's so introvert, he doesn't talk to anyone. So now it's a very normal trait that he doesn't like to talk to anyone, but that is perceived as something which is unusual or special. So try to understand, what are your ideas about relationship, how much realistic they are or how much unrealistic they are. So you keep in mind those things. Do not get into any love at first sight wala relationship, because that is more driven by your biological needs to get into relationship than a psychological need. Maybe, as you said, in some other workshop we can talk about in details. That is one thing. And third thing is that try to also understand the non-verbal behavior of your partner. Sometimes we just take verbal things into account, while you are WhatsApping, messaging, or social media. Integrate all this data together to know a person, how person behaves with you when you are in person, how person talks to you virtually, how this person is otherwise when you are with a group. All this data can help you to gather an information about someone whom you are possibly looking for a dating relationship. I think it's a huge topic, like
Yes, it
yeah.
is. It is. It
So
is. But yes, I think these are helpful tips as a starting point, and we could look at maybe having a whole session that focuses on how healthy relationships could be built. The other question is, how do we prevent a codependent relationship from forming?
codependency is again altogether a different topic, but what I can is like we can talk about people who are co-dependent, who always they need some approval to build their sense of identity, and that is something which is unhealthy. So suppose if you're asking these questions from the point of view of the other partner, like suppose if I'm a partner and my partner is getting codependent on me, so there could be a problem with this person. Maybe we talk about different personality aspects. So the codependency, you can always deal with it in assertive manner. Not all the time. When your partner is seeking for assurance, you don't need to give that assurance always. You can always let your partner think about with her own ways of thinking, and not how you are looking at it. So for example, if the partner is asking, okay, tell me what dress should I wear, so this is very small thing, but again we are developing this codependency. The partner is going to wear what I'm going to tell her or him to do that. So in small situations, small cases, you can cut that codependency, and you can straight away tell that person, okay, now today I want you to choose something which makes you happy, or something which suits you, something which you wanted to use it or wear it. So these are the small things through which, so assertive, by being assertive, by allowing your partner to make decisions on on themselves, could be an ideal way to stop this development of codependency. I think that is was it helpful? I don't.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So being assertive is one of the best ways, and maybe being assertive right early on from the relationship, so that you don't let the pattern become entrenched or embedded.
True.
So right from the beginning, be assertive and allow for space and independence for both partners to
Yes,
be
absolutely.
themselves, is what you're
Yes, yes,
saying, right?
yes.
There is one relationship, one question. Can one fall out of love?
Can one fall out of love? Very tricky question to answer, but I would say again, falling out is not a one-point process, one-point phenomenon. Okay, it also depends on how you are as a person. So there are some people who are reluctant to invest in any relationship. Those are kind of avoidant people, introvert people. So such people, they may fall in love once in their life, and if they experience any kind of such betrayal or such kind of loss, they will immediately fall out of it, and they will say that, okay, nahi chahiye mere ko ye life mein. So it also depends on your personality. So falling out I won't say it's an easy or realistic process. Sometimes we do see in media and social media, you know, one fine day it is like just out of love. But I would say no, falling out of love, it's not an easy process. It is not one-time process. But as similar to moving on, it will take some time and depends on the personal characteristics of the person and also the resources, the coping resources available to this person at that time.
Very true. Very
Yeah.
true. Just like falling in love is also not a one moment process.
Yes,
So also falling out of love is
exactly.
something that happens probably over a period of time. And just
Yes.
to add to that, I'm sure it does happen and it can happen. As people can grow up to be different people than what they
Hmm.
were, people's
True.
expectations from relationships from each
Mhm.
other can change, and that could result in creating a distance in relationship where you feel you don't connect any longer with each other, which is what we would call as falling out of love. So yes, of
Yes,
course, I
yes.
would say it is definitely possible, and recognizing that at the right time
Hmm. Hmm.
is something that we all can look at. One more question is there. How do I know I have chosen the right partner?
Okay. uh, okay.
Any formula you can give us?
Formula. Oh my God. Okay. So first of all, what is right partner actually? I don't know what is right partner because for me, the right partner, the concept of right partner is a myth. It's a too ideal or too prototypical, and this is something usually portrayed in our daily soaps and media. In real life, getting an ideal true partner or right partner, I would say it is not a reality. Why I would say? Because each person is going to have his own weaknesses. Okay, and as your proximity develops, as your relationship grows, some people would be more comfortable disclosing about their weaknesses. So at every point of your time in your relationship, as you grow ahead, you will have some situation wherein you will experience those negative emotions. Now if this is the process, then that is not a right love according to our definition. Or right love or the correct love or correct partner is something or someone with whom we are living happily forever. But this is again an it's a myth. It's not a it's a reality. Person could be correct, person could be right in a particular situation and may not be right in a particular situation. And of course, if I have many such situations wherein my partner is like behaving according to my wish, or the partner's behavior is healthy, if the frequency of such situations or such episodes is high, then I can say that okay, this probably is the right partner or right person with whom I would like to spend most of my time or my life. But the fun part is that we realize it after 8 or 10 years of relationship with some person. So you will need to give this much of time to come to a conclusion that whether this person is right or not.
Also, Swapnil, I
Huh.
think a parallel question or a simultaneous question to ask
Huh.
yourself would also be, how do I know that I am being the right partner? So, what is it that I also need to be doing, saying, behaving like? So, when you focus on both these things, I think the right relationship is more likely to evolve.
Right, right.
Right? As you said,
Absolutely.
there is no ready-made right partner formula, so to
There is no,
speak.
absolutely
It's
no.
about what the two people create together to make it a right relationship.
Hmm.
So focusing not just on qualities of the other person, but also on qualities that you yourself have and how you complement each other, or how you can get yourselves to complement each other better would probably be a better benchmark or better scale to go by, I would say.
I see impulsiveness is one of the major obstacle in the relationship, the whole gamut of relationship and breakup, everything. uh, Today's, I won't say today's generation as such, but people, because of the availability of partner, availability of forums, wherein partner you can search for partners, dating apps, dating sites. So somewhere at the back of the my mind, we are quite, maybe are we impulsive enough not to tolerate some my partner's mistake, my partner's behavior? Because of the easy availability, am I not willing to hold on and wait how long I can go with this? So I think that is also important for, the point. One is the impulsivity, the person, as a person, how impulsive I am, how impatient I am. and secondly is the availability of the, the partner availability or the availability of the resources are also important things in this whole process of, breaking a relationship or going ahead with this relationship.
True, true. One last question I see on the chat. How can I build trust after trust being broken in every relationship, from family to friend to love?
Okay. Okay. So I see two possibilities here always. One is that unfortunately, I got such people who happen to break my trust. This is one. Secondly, now this is up to me. Am I having some unrealistic expectations from all those whom I have met, or with all those people? So both this possibility, if the possibility A is correct, that unfortunately I met, abusive, I was in abusive relationship, I have met, partners or maybe people around me who could not, build that trust with me, that environment was not safe. Yes, that can be really, it's workable. But if this, it's other way around, that I need to understand my own expectations from relationship. So once we get to know this now, then probably if the second is the case, that my expectations, my unrealistic expectations from people, for example, I believe that if I give my 100%, another person should also give in return, and if it doesn't happen, then the person is not really worthy, or I'm not worthy, and then my trust is, gets broken. So this could be one of the belief because of which everyone whom I approach in my circle, and they happen to break my trust, because it could be my expectations also. So depending on where the fault lies, I would say, we can work accordingly. So if it is about me, you can always work with your own belief system. As I said earlier, through one-to-one counseling, you can always go back and check what is your relationship pattern, what is your relationship script, to be very precise, whether it is a faulty or whether it is not really rigid or flexible. This is something which we need to understand.
True. Also, I would like to add a little bit here. If you have experienced betrayals in multiple relationships, and I would definitely urge you to kind of really have a couple of sessions with an expert professional or a therapist, because one of the things you would want to explore is that what is it about you, or what is it in you that is creating you to get into relationships where you are either misused or abused or betrayed, so there is something definitely, as Swapnil has already said, about my expectations, my beliefs, not just expectations about relationships, but about my beliefs. Is it that I am getting into a relationship with a vibe or with an energy that kind of allows for this kind of betrayals to happen? So what is it that I need to change about myself is something I would definitely urge you to look at and do a little bit of introspection and self work before you decide that you're ready to get into another relationship, because you want to ensure that your further relationships are healthier and filled with more trust than what you have experienced so far. So certainly talking to somebody who's an objective professional would be helpful in this scenario, I suppose. Right?
Yes.
So any other questions any of you would like to ask? We can take some questions there.
Any comments, any feedback?
Yeah, I have a question. Can I ask?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I think in quite a few of your answers to some of the questions that you mentioned earlier, you spoke about closure. And I think that's an important point, because when there is a loss in terms of death, relationship, or in any other way, it's important that there is that proper closure to move on to wherever you want to head next. So can you give some guidelines that to, how one can, how do you give yourself a closure? Because a lot of times, I think in death, you don't receive a closure from the other person. In relation to like some of the questions which you answered in the last, that, if there's a breakup, if there is, a fallout, these are things where you're just left to deal with it yourself. So in that kind of a situation, how do you give yourself the closure?
See, closure, try to understand in this case, closure, there will be an open end. Why? Because the other person is not there, and we are likely to fill that gap, most of the time, and which is inevitable. Here I would, when I see have a closure, means what? Assimilate the fact that the life is, and I will have to adjust my life without this person. Okay, there are certain plans which are interrupted abruptly, not fulfilled. There are certain wishes, desires which are still unfulfilled. Now accepting this reality of loss is something which is an important form of closure, wherein accepting every time, so every situation, each situation is going to remind you of this person and that loss. Now, as I said earlier, what I need to tell myself here, so here I will have to modify what instructions or what things which I tell myself in that situation. As I said, if I go back to the same place wherein we used to travel together or meet together, or maybe similar things at home, so we need to understand that things will be there. I cannot discard those things. For example, cell phone, I cannot throw because it reminds me of him or her. Now, accepting the fact that I can still live my life with his or her belongings or with his or her things there. I will have to, I can still I can still feel happy. I can still enjoy movie. I can still, go out and meet with my friends. I can go on shopping with at the back of the mind, or, in the background, this person not being there. So closure is, as I said, closure is, you'll have to seek it through all these small activities. Stopping, you need to stop yourself restricting to certain activities, making yourself open to many other possibilities, adapting to your new role. This is a new role. There is a change. There will be definitely going to be a change in routing. And while doing all these things, you need to understand at the back of the mind, what are the self instructions, what kind of self instructions that you give to yourself. So every time when you see those things, you feel sad, helpless, or you tell yourself, it's okay, this is so difficult for me to, get through it, overcome it, but I'm sure I will. Or it is in long run, it is very essential, it is going to be helpful for me to go through this pain. So this kind of self motivating talk or self enhancing instructions is something which you need to prepare for yourself, and you need to, sort of rehearse with yourself. And this is how, so again, as I said, with small events, getting, combining together at some point of time, you will be eventually, you will come out of it, and you will get a closure to it.
Oh, thank you very much for your response. I think
Yeah.
that was very nice. Also, thank you for the wonderful session to both of
Yes.
you.
Thank you, Parijat.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so I guess we will wind up this session. I think Sukhada has some last words to say to us, but before that, just to summarize in a nutshell all the important insights and information that Swapnil has shared with us, I think a few things that I would like to leave you all with is that dealing with loss in a relationship, whether it is in the form of a breakup or a separation or a death, what we need to understand, one thing that we understand from today's session is that grief is like an ocean. It comes in waves. So there are times when it's peaceful and you feel things are okay and you're dealing with it. And there are times when it just gets so overwhelming that you just feel completely under it. These are not my words. These are words of Helen Keller. I was recently reading about her, and this is what she says about grief. And listening to Swapnil, I think we would all agree with that. A few things for us to look at is try and revisit your expectations from yourself, from the relationships. Try and look at the loss, especially if the loss has come from a breakup, as a learning experience rather than allowing it to scar you or make you bitter for life. Look at, okay, what is it that I have learned about myself? What is it that I need to change about what I am expecting in relationships? And what are the good things that I can take forward? Keeping distance from the partner physically and over social media, very important. Not remain isolated, be with your loved ones. Make sure you start engaging in activities that give you joy, that give you purpose and meaning in life. so that you're able to move on. Moving on again is a personal and dynamic process, could be different for different people, and we don't judge ourselves or other people in terms of how the moving on happens or how long it takes, but we try and stay true to ourselves as we go through the process, and keep looking at how best we can cope with the situation. I think this has been a great session and information for all of us. Any parting words, Swapnil?
Uh, yeah, it's very difficult to again, summarize. But what I always see, this is a part and parcel of life. We don't know. In fact, in our system, our education system, our cultural system also, we are not well equipped. We are never taught how to deal with grief in advance, because this is something, how can we talk about someone's death and prepare ourselves for that? So this is, I find, after doing a lot of reading some, everywhere, and after this discussion, I feel that at somewhere, like all our life skills and values that we teach in our schools, to our kids, somewhere we also need to have something similar to how to deal with such kind of losses in life in general, how to prepare yourself, so we can actually reduce a kind of a possibly heavy toll that it might pose to someone. So maybe by teaching kids or teaching people how usually one can react during grief, how to prevent it, so maybe people can have a grief experience as very soothing and very healthy experience to go through it, rather than feeling very negative and something which is very unpleasant to it. So yes, so wishing all of you happy recently we had celebrated mental health awareness week, and we are still celebrating it. So I wish all of us will be able to build some kind of resiliency while facing such very very painful situations in our life, and more positive strengths to all of us to face all these such situations which are inevitable and unavoidable. Yes, that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Swapnil.
Thanks
Sukhada?
so much.
Yeah,
Thanks a
can
lot,
take over.
Swapnil, and thanks a lot, Samindra ma'am. I think what we all kind of agree is that talking about these issues is such an important point and aspect of these current times, especially with so much grief and loss around us. What we are very happy to inform all our dear participants is that Disha Counseling Center is very proudly and very happily engaging in conducting sessions, which is something which is a unique offering of Disha Counseling Center. That is the relationship gym. So it's a unique 2-hour workshop on developing healthy romantic relationships, which will be conducted post Diwali sessions. And Swapnil, being a part of Disha, will be actively involved in the process along with Samindra ma'am. So dear participants, kindly make use of these offerings, and please connect with us, please register with us, and we'll be very glad to help you all with the entire process of it. So thanks once again. With this, I would love to inform each and everyone that have relationships, have healthier relationships, and if there is grief and loss, it can still be dealt with. And Disha Counseling Center is always with all of you all for this. Thanks a lot. And with this, we come to a closure of today's session.